Pokemon Pokopia. When this game first announced, I'm gonna be real with you guys, a lot of people wrote it off. A Pokemon life sim, a building game where you play as Ditto, and they're charging $70 for it? The internet had opinions. Oh, did the internet have opinions? But the preview embargo just dropped. Multiple outlets got their hands on this game. Cerebi, Nintendo Life, Game Informer, Games Radar, IGN, and more. And what they're saying might actually surprise you. Now, I'll be real, I'm pretty excited about Pokopia, but these news reviews are crazy. So today we're breaking down everything the reviewers had to say about Pokemon Pokopia. What works, what has people concerned, and whether this game could end up being one of the biggest Pokemon spin-offs of all time. And I'm not kidding. If you guys are excited for Pokemon Pokopia, make sure you guys subscribe and leave a comment down below who you're trying to grab first in the game. I'm ready for those bug types, but I'm going to be streaming it. I'm going to be covering Pokopia on this channel, so get ready for it. All right, so before we dive into what the reviewers are saying, let me set the stage for anyone who might not be fully caught up. Pokemon Pokopia is a brand new spin-off game coming to Nintendo Switch 2 on March 5th. It's being co-developed by Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, and Koei Tecmo's Omega Force. And that last one is huge because Omega Force is the team behind Dragon Quest Builders 2, which is one of the best building games ever made. The premise is wild. You play as a Ditto that is transformed to look like its long-lost trainer. You wake him up in a world where all the humans and most of the Pokemon are just gone. You meet Professor Tangrowth. Yes, a Tangrowth is the professor in this game, and I personally love that. And your job is to rebuild this world, create habitats, and bring the Pokemon back. Now, people have been comparing this to Animal Crossing, to Minecraft, to Dragon Quest Builders, and according to the reviewers, it's kind of like all of those things, but also its own unique thing entirely. And there's one comparison that keeps coming up that I did not expect, but we'll get to that. Okay, so here's the thing. Across the board, the impressions are overwhelmingly positive. Like, almost shockingly positive. Nintendo's Life Ollie Reynolds, the guy who openly said he hasn't been into Pokemon games for a while, said, and I quote, "Despite going in with the lowest of low expectations, Pokeopia was a huge surprise which had me grinning ear to ear." That's the headline of this article, by the way. He goes on to say the game is, and this was the comparison I mentioned earlier, a blend of Dragon Quest Builders and Viva Pinata. Viva Pinata, for those who remember the Xbox 360 Classic, that's a game where you build environments to attract different creatures. Sound familiar? That's literally Pokopia's habitat system. And speaking of the habitat system, this is what every reviewer is losing their minds over. Here's how it works. You place specific items and environmental elements together, like tall grass near a boulder or a certain punching bag next to a bench, and it creates a habitat that attracts certain Pokemon. Cerebi confirmed there's an entire habitat dex in the game, and each habitat can spawn common and rare Pokemon. Game Informer's Charlie Hart absolutely nailed why this system is brilliant. He pointed out that in most building games, you only craft the furniture you personally think looks cool. But in Pokopia, you're motivated to craft everything because you're always wondering which new Pokemon that item might attract. That's genius game design right there. And Cerebi's Joe Merrick, who got to play 90 minutes at Nintendo's headquarters, said the game looked fantastic visually. We're talking colorful, crisp graphics, and he reported a completely solid 60 frames per second with no frame drops during his entire session. For a Pokemon game, that's a big deal, and the Nintendo Switch 2 probably has a lot to do with that. Games Radar literally said, quote, 90 minutes. That's all it took to convince me that Pokemon Pokopia is going to take over my life. I was not kidding, these reviews are nuts. Now here's where it gets really interesting because a lot of people assume this was going to be a small, shallow experience, and the reviewers are saying it's the opposite. Cerebi described the sheer amount of content as being far more than anticipated, calling it not a small or short game. He suggests players will still be discovering new elements months after release. The game director, Takuto Edogawa, told IGN the main story alone runs about 20 to 40 hours, but the real point of the game extends well beyond the credits. He said there are more things to experience after the ending. There are hundreds of craftable items, materials, and recipes. There's a new environment level system where you make your Pokemon happier to unlock content. There are daily rotating shop items, yes, real-time daily rotations, and PokeLife challenges at Pokemon Center PCs that'll give you objectives and rewards. And here's something cool. Your Ditto can learn moves from the Pokemon that you befriend. Water Gun from Squirtle lets you revitalize the land, Leafage from Bulbasaur lets you plant grass, Rock Smash from Hitmonchan lets you break blocks, Cut from Scyther lets you chop trees, you can even transform into Dragonite to fly and Lapras to surf. Your Ditto goes full chibi Dragonite with that classic Ditto face, and honestly, I kind of want that as a plush. Now let's talk multiplayer because this could be the secret weapon of the game. Up to 4 players can play together, and the reviewers said that it was an absolute blast. Game Informer described their groups going totally wild, smashing each other's builds, one player literally jumping off the height limit to test fall damage. Spoiler, there is none, but your trainer does splat back into Ditto form, which is hilarious. Nintendo's Life team couldn't even finish their multiplayer objective, rebuilding a Pokemon Center, before their demo time ran out. That's a good sign that the game actually has some challenge to it. But I want to be fair, there are a couple concerns. Cerebi noted that in multiplayer, you're playing in the host world, and progress doesn't carry over for the visitors beyond Pokedex entries. Wild Pokemon also demand to speak with the host player before they'll follow anyone, which caused some friction. There's also a building timer system. When you construct something like a dwelling for Dittos, it takes real-time minutes to finish. 15 minutes for one building, and there's no way to skip it. The game clock runs on your Switch 2's real time, so speedrunning this is off the table. And obviously, the elephant in the room. This is a $70 game released as a game key card, meaning no physical cartridge. That's rubbing a lot of collectors the wrong way, and I understand that frustration. So where does that leave us? Look, I'll be completely honest with you guys. When Pokopia was first revealed, I thought it looked interesting, and I was into it, but I wasn't sure how deep it would go. A lot of us have been burned by Pokemon spin-offs that feel light on content or half-baked, but these previews are painting a very different picture. Every single outlet that played this game came away impressed. Multiple reviewers who went in skeptical came out as believers. The people behind Dragon Quest builders brought their A game. Game Freak's DNA is all over the menus and presentation, and the Pokemon charm is cranked up to 11. Cerebi called it a fresh take on Pokemon as a series and said it could be one for the books and the biggest spin-off ever. Nintendo Life said it feels like exactly what they needed to get back into Pokemon. Game Informer said the habitat system seamlessly combines the joy of town customization with the long-running tradition of Pokemon catching. I am genuinely hyped for this game, and I actually just scheduled some traveling in March to make sure that I'm home so I can stream it on the 5th. But I want to hear from you. Are these previews changing your mind about Pokopia? Were you already sold, or are you still on the fence? Drop your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this one, hit that like button and subscribe for more Pokopia, and I'll see y'all soon.